So, in today's video, we're going to be restoring this locomotive. This is an old Triang CN locomotive. This is another one of the ones that M&M Rails wanted me to restore. I believe it was made in the 50s or 60s. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I'm going to suspect we'll be able to get this one working because these old Triang locomotives, in my experience, have been known to be very, very tough. So I've been looking over this locomotive, and just like all the other locomotives, they've got that weird traction tire stuff on them. So I think that may be the problem of why this engine doesn't work. And that would be because if you put that over a conductive surface, it's going to block it. They also put it over the back wheels, which is pretty weird because these don't turn, so that would provide no extra traction. And it was done so unevenly that I suspect that it would actually make the locomotive derail at high speeds. Yeah, look at how much of this stuff they put on. I have to admit, it's not a realistic locomotive, but I am fascinated by it because I think this is one of Triang's locomotives that was British, but they gave it a Canadian paint scheme, which I know they did with a couple of other locomotives. I think they had a Canadian Pacific one just like this one. I also have that Switcher locomotive, although that one wasn't painted by Triang. That one was painted by whoever owned it at one point, so I have now got all the weird stuff off the back tires. Now we have to get them off the front. One of them doesn't have it, I don't know. Maybe that burnt off, who knows. It may be easier to use a knife to do this, but I really don't want to scrape up the wheels too bad, so I'm just going to go at it manually. Unfortunately, since the wheels are locked in, we have to give the locomotive a bit of power. I really hope it turns over, otherwise it's going to be a lot harder to get to those wheels. It's doing something. Yeah, look at that. She's turning over. That's a lot of power, but, I mean, it's doing it. Well, it would seem that I've got all that weird traction tire stuff off, so I guess we can test to see if this locomotive even runs. We have got her set up on track. We're going to try giving her some power. Nothing. Oh. Okay, full power. Well, it's trying to do it. I think this locomotive just needs to be lubricated and cleaned. I know that on my Triang RDC, when you take up these two screws, the whole bottom piece pops off and you have access to the motor and gearbox. I really hope that's the same design on this one because I don't really know how to open these up, to be completely honest. Oh! Well, we're in. A little bit of hair and the bearings are dirty, but it's not near to as bad as I would have thought. Time to add some conductive lubricant into the bearings. And as always, just a very little amount, not even a drop. Looks like we've got some hair on the wiper. We'll take that off. Try starting her up. Weird. There's no short because the current would have gone all the way back there. So Now, I can't seem to locate the problem from the outside, and I had no clue how to get in. And then I remembered that on the top here, in these two vents, there are a couple screws. Now, I don't know what undoing these screws may cause, but I'd assume it has something to do with the motor. Okay, wow. What the heck is this? Someone packed this thing with money? I swear, if this thing is full of old currency that someone put in there. In fact, this is old newspaper. I should be careful with this. I would hate to rip off like a date or something here. Let me get a knife. I really want to see what this is. See if we can get this open. Many people. I don't know if this is just a weight. I don't think this would have come like this from the factory. It'd be so cool if this is like an old newspaper though, and it has like a date or something on it. It's got writing on it. I don't know what else it would be. Oh, come on. Let me take up this piece. See, the thing is it's round, so that's why I think this thing could be some old currency. This was made in England quite a long time ago, so. Yeah, I don't really want to rip this paper, but I don't know how else to get in. It's like fused together. The bay. So I'm going to assume this was at some point put in here in Canada, because I don't think the bay exists in England or wherever this thing was made. Somebody put some kind of glue in here. Oh no. Batteries. And the reason this is all fused together is probably because they've been leaking. Why would somebody put batteries in this thing? Should I take one out? This is really leaky. That, my friends, is one very old battery. Wow. So this was clearly at some point some kind of ad for the bay, and it was in the Montreal Star, dated for Tuesday, April, and then it's gone. But we have the other piece of paper, and if we put it together, you can see it's April 16th, 1974. So this piece of paper has been in this locomotive for, well, probably since not long after 1974. So, there you go. This thing has seen time. It's too bad those batteries are around it. It's kind of interesting. This has been in there all that time. We've got some fine 70s furniture on the back. Well, enough goofing around. Let's get back to fixing this thing. This is the coolest thing I've ever found inside a locomotive, though. Wow. This also says this locomotive probably was in Montreal at some point if this was in it. Just thought I'd do a close-up of this locomotive's interior. It's covered in all this weird bronze crap. I think this has been slowly getting shredded away. I also noticed the gears on the bottom of this thing are a little bit of an odd shape. It's just, I think, a lot of years of being run. I mean, if this thing was built in, let's say, the earliest, the late 60s, you know, it's been running for almost 50 years, probably over 50 years. And it's also probably been hauling those two heavy batteries around since the 70s, so yeah, this thing has stories to tell. I'm definitely gonna have to clean this out. There's some stuff that I really don't think should be in there. This was probably being run on a carpet. That's probably what was going on. You'll also notice these little cotton pads on each side. I know they look like a pile of dust, but they were actually, I believe, put in there by the factory, and the idea is supposed to be that you take your oil and you soak that, and it will keep it kind of permanently lubricated for a long time. I've seen this used on some fans before, and I think a lot of companies use this design to lubricate bearings and motors and stuff like that. We're now going to start reassembling this locomotive. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be some weights here, to be honest. Interesting. It says R55, R57, made in England, trying. I'm not sure if you can see that on the end there. I just like to share these little details when I find them. Now we're going to just take this, put it back over. I think it's designed so that it fits in there. I'm not sure. Okay, so just like some of the steam locomotives I've worked on, there are these two holes in the back. The frame needs to go in there for this to line up properly. That's actually a pretty good design. Okay, let's test her. Okay, here she goes. Nope. Just line the switch. There we go. Well, I don't really know what's going on. I think this could be a double O gauge locomotive, and I'm not sure if maybe the flanges are hitting the ties on the rails, which is an entirely possible thing. Although my other Triang RDC never had that problem, so I don't really know why this one would, unless they changed the design of the wheels at some point. Well, whatever the case, she is doing it. Yeah. Come on. So the conclusion that I've come to is that this thing actually does run okay. It's just that it keeps getting caught up on little pieces of track, like the switches, for example. You notice how it keeps stuttering, but it runs smooth on this section. So that's gonna be my guess. I'll just see if that theory proves to be true. Yeah, you can see there's no problems on these section of track. But if we try to run her back here, then we run into problems. This is actually kind of cool because this old Triang has the couplers, the British coupling styles, and when I bought my RDC, my old Triang one, it actually has some rolling stock which has this exact coupling style, and it's CN, so I guess we can hook that up and have a train. Here are my two old passenger cars. These passenger cars, by the way, I have to give Triang some credit. They really did put detail into them. You can see that one's number 300, and this one's number 303. So these were not generic. They actually did put different numbers, which is something you would not expect from pretty much a toy model maker from the time. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I try to run fast, but yeah, it keeps getting caught on the switches, so Yeah, I think it just needs larger track, or maybe some adjustments to the wheels. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. But this is a very cool locomotive, and I guess it's nice to see her running again. So as it turned out, I might have been wrong about this locomotive. As it turned out, I did some more tinkering on it and discovered that the flanges were so close together that they were actually hitting the re-railers on all the switches. So after the adjustments, you can see it does go over them, and it does stutter a tiny bit. That could just be because it has very deep flanges, but the locomotive does seem to run okay over them. And I should have known this because my Triang RDC had the exact same issue. It couldn't actually make it across the bridge because the flanges were so close together. So I should have known this, but you know, trial and error, right? You can see this thing, you know, it doesn't run flawlessly, but it is making it over all the switches now. Which is pretty good, and we've got, you know, we've got reverse too. To show you too, the current draw is even quite low for a locomotive of its age. That's actually pretty good. So that concludes the video for today. If any of you people know anything about this thing, that would be great if you could send me a link to it. I think there are some people from across the pond who may have a bit of information about it. And other than that, thank you guys for watching.